about a snowstorm. I don't know how charming it felt. I don't know if it just felt like a flashback nightmare, okay, with all the cars skidding and all of the other things, the power problems. So, but it was interesting. So what do you think, if you can go back to that chapter 17. Did you find it charming, the descriptions? I mean, there's a boy on his sled. He hurts his foot. The school buses waiting for the students. No students throwing snowballs. Cars skidding around town. Anything? Why would the author spend 3 or 4 pages just describing the town and what's happening during snow? Any idea?
Just to give us a sense of the town's view.
There you go. A sense of how the town feels. Is this an abnormal town?
No, seems pretty average from the description.
Yeah, very average, very friendly, very normal. I think the word again is charming. Little kids playing in the snow. Interesting, okay? Lopsided snowmen. And then they think, they're not sure what kind of snowstorm it's going to be. Is this going to be a really bad snowstorm where they're going to be stuck in their houses? And they're worried about that, but at the same time they think, oh, well, maybe being stuck in the house for a while won't be so bad. Just sleep in, get up, eat, sit by the fire. Sounds pretty good. But on page 255, at least what I noticed, was the last line. You notice there's a gap there on that page. The last line where it says, there was nothing to be done except what could be done, and then the rest, like the salt water around them, which swallowed the snow without any effort, remaining what it was implacably, was out of their hands beyond. And the reason I asked why, if you had read ahead, have you read ahead? Just checking. Is because I think there's a little foreshadowing going on there. Because what is out of their hands? What is out of the hands of the people? Can't control the snow. You can't control weather. There are some things you can't control. And if you start to think about the things that have happened so far in the novel, that is true in so many ways. The weather you can't control, but there are other things that these characters can't control. The war, the fact that for Hatsu and Ishmael, they can't control the fact that they're coming from different sides of this. The people who are drafted can't control the fact that they are put into this war. So there's a lot of things that are out of control, and nature here especially, and I'm saying there's a little foreshadowing, nature, not being able to control nature might be an especially important thing to think about. And the title, sometimes you go back to the title, Snow Falling on Cedars. That's the title of the novel. And cedars have a significance, if you recall why in particular, with some of the main characters. Hatsu and Ishmael, that's where they would meet, and that's where you may argue that they fell in love, or their relationship grew, or however you want to frame it. Depends on what your perspective is. I'll be honest with you, I've read this book a couple times now, and I'm still not quite sure. Which I love sometimes about a book, which is fun. You get to go back and you're like, oh, well, maybe not. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know. So the snow and nature. There was a second question that I thought was interesting. I don't know why, if you looked at the question sheet, but maybe they thought this was an appropriate time in the novel to raise the question. Do you believe that Carl and Kabu would consider themselves enemies? No. No. You don't have, no?
Repeat the question?
Well, Carl and Kabuo, I probably should pronounce it. You think they feel that they're enemies? No. Not really, okay. Are there issues between them?
Yeah, I think enemy is a strong word.
Okay.
But,
Enemy is a strong word. There's a problem related to what? There are a couple of problems. Well, actually, there's a few big problems, the more you think about it. The land is right now in front of us as a problem, a matter of dispute. There's also something in their very recent past that is driving a wedge between them. And it comes down to who they are as human beings. Their ethnicity, why? What is it that particularly has made their ethnicity a problem recently in their lives? The war, okay? They've both been in a horrific situation. There's a lot of people talk about the movie Saving Private Ryan in the first few minutes of that movie. Have you seen this film? Saving Private Ryan? Very graphic and scary. And so these men were in situations where they had to kill people who looked like the other person, and they saw people close to them, people who they were friendly with, kill those people. So they're associating. I don't think I would be arguing that racism or prejudice is okay, but can I understand why there's some tension there? I mean, it's just, if you got beaten up every day by a guy with a big yellow hat, if you saw somebody with a big yellow hat, you might be scared, or call for Curious George. I'm not sure, one of the two. Okay. So I like what you said, that enemies is a strong word. Can you see what may be, do you have any evidence of friendship? Or kindness, maybe? And you might have to go way back in the book to remember this. This was a while ago. Does anyone remember what happened when the Japanese were told to leave? And we got a sense that Carl and Kabuo hung out together. They were friendly before the war, okay? Or maybe even, you could say, friends. And then there was something that was exchanged before they left. Does anybody remember? Might have something to do with Carl's profession, her former profession. Anybody? No? Yes?
No.
Do you remember that Carl got from Kabuo before he left? The fishing pole. Do you remember that? the fishing pole, and he wanted to give it to him, and then what happened? The parents said to give it back. So there's a past there. There's a friendship. It's that person maybe that you were really good buddies with in elementary school, and maybe you're not such buddies anymore. Maybe something happened, or maybe you just grew apart. But there's but when you see that person, you're friendly, I would think. Okay, hi, how are you? But maybe if there's something that happened, there's a little tension as well. So I agree. Enemies is a strong word, but I don't think they're buddies. And actually, we know from reading a little bit later on, don't we? Actually, that's why I was wondering why this question was placed in this section. Why? Because we found out that later on he says, it's never going to be the same. And I don't know that I can necessarily condemn Carl for feeling that way after what he's been through. Also, as I think about it, because they've both been in the war, and they were, by the way, let's be very clear, they were both on the same side. Okay? They were both on the same side of the war. So they have that in common. If you've ever been through something tough or difficult or really unpleasant with somebody else, you share a bond with that person that's very unique. Would you agree? Okay? And one thing that they have in common is that they both went to the war, and what do they both have in common with the men they are when they came back? They're withdrawn. They're emotionless almost. And notice how, I don't know about you, but if somebody accused me of murder and I didn't do it, I'd be pretty fired up. He's claiming he didn't do it, and he's sitting there very rigidly in the courtroom. Okay, so it makes people suspicious a little bit. And so they both also share that. They have an understanding. And again, going back to the traumatic or difficult time that you may have gone through with somebody, every time you see them, you don't go through the whole thing because you just know. You don't have to go through it. You just know, and we share this bond, this connection. Okay? All right. Let's go on to chapter 18. The sheriff gives a few reasons for searching the boat. And I like that. When we get kind of the judge behind the scenes talking to the sheriff, what do we learn about that sheriff, that judge? When he gets asked for that search warrant, how does the judge act? Like, it's one of those Japs, we gotta search. Is that how he reacts? Does he sign it right away? Chapter 18. No, he doesn't. What does he do before he goes through with it? He asks a lot of questions, and the sheriff asks to search two things: the boat and what else? If you're searching for a murder weapon, where, and you have a suspect, where are you going to want to search? Right. So he asked to search the boat and his home, but the judge says you're only going to get to search which one? The boat, because he doesn't want him to disturb the family. So I see a judge who's very fair, very compassionate, very, and he's going through all of the rules to be very specific about how he does things. I don't think the sheriff is, does his job poorly either. It's good to see, you don't ever get a sense that these people are prejudiced, although they may have some things in the back of their mind that they don't realize, that they might have a bias against somebody because they're Japanese. Okay, but he gives a few reasons. He says, number one, he was in the same waters. Number two, Carl's mother says that they're enemies. 3, there's a piece of mooring line. 4, Jurgensen is saying that Carl and Miyamoto were out there recently to talk about property. And 5, the wound matches something that the coroner, not the coroner, the doctor doing the autopsy says is reminded him of something he saw in the war. So those are the reasons he gives. Which one of those reasons do you think was the best one, the most compelling reason, if you were the judge? Is there one, or none of them good enough?
The fifth, the one that...
The wound?
No, like, say you'd seen Japanese wounds like this, and that they would use a lot of their guns to hit.
Okay, so he said he had seen the wounds in the war and that had used the butt of their guns very much in a similar way to produce the kind of injury that they had on Carl's head. Okay, that's what we're hearing here. Any of the other ones? Yes? The lines, the mooring lines, because they match the other boat. Also, I mean, what a coincidence. What a strange coincidence that these mooring lines match. The judge goes through them pretty quickly. Remember, he says, well, a lot of other people were out there, not just him. And he definitely doesn't like Carl's mother, and he uses the words, he says, I don't trust that woman, she's hateful. So she's not on the trustworthy list. So one other thing, beyond the 5 reasons, is that they don't have much time, right? The boats are about to leave. So the judge does decide to go through with it and gives them the warrant. Do you remember the section about all the superstitions that the fishermen have? The words you can't say? Do you remember any of the things you couldn't do or bring onto a boat? Or the animals you can't mention? I think it was a horse, a pig, or a hog. You can't say them. What about herding seagulls? Good thing, bad thing? Bad thing. all of these superstitions. Have you ever seen someone who's very superstitious and does things just a certain way? Do you have a job maybe that involves that, just out of curiosity?
So you never say last run when you're going up the mountain snowboarding?
You never say last run when going up the mountain for snowboarding. Why? What happens?
So you say it's your last run, that's the one you get hurt on.
Oh, okay. You say it's your last run, it's the one you get hurt on. I know in theater you're not supposed to talk about Macbeth, or say break a leg or something like
It's not just to say
that. Good luck, is that what it is? Break a leg, okay, there you go. Right. Oh, right. So there are all these superstitions, and there's a whole bunch of them you're not supposed to do. If you were going out, let's say you were going out with one of these fishermen on one of their trips out to sea, and they told you all these things you're not supposed to do, okay? Would you be worried about doing any of them? Yeah, I have a yes. Even no matter how silly it seems. Don't say that. Don't say pig, horse, hog. Don't hurt a seagull. Don't bring umbrellas or broken mirrors or give someone a pair of scissors as a gift. Okay? So you have all these things. So you knew it. Would you do any of those things? No. Why? No. They're kind of silly, isn't it? Would you just give someone a present as scissors just to see what happens?
That's a respect thing.
Oh, respect?
Yeah,
Okay.
They know what they're doing.
Would you be scared if you did it? No? Like if somebody says, if you give a gift of scissors, the ship is going to go down. And so you go, I'll prove this, and I'm going to give someone a gift of scissors. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to be like, no? No? I don't know. Aaron, you went right away to no. Why are you going to not do any of those silly things?
Fishermen can be crazy guys sometimes.
Okay. Fishermen, maybe. Okay, fishermen can be crazy guys. And if they've been doing this for day after day or for a long time at least, and for over the years, no matter how crazy it might seem, do you think they might know something that maybe you don't?
Yeah.
Right? And they might be in tune with nature in a certain way that you aren't. And it might not be magic, it just might be the way things are in some strange domino effect way that we don't quite understand. But I think that's interesting, because the other thing that tells you, all of those superstitions, is that they're very observant. If you're, anyone here worked with fishermen or done any kind of real fishermen? I don't mean throw the quarter in the bowl at the fair and get a bit of fish. You know? Deep sea fishing? I think it's serious business, and I think that oh, geez. Yeah, and that experience that's the way you learn those things, and maybe hopefully somebody else told him not to grab it when he was there. So they're very observant. They have certain rules and unwritten rules, and are very careful about things. So getting those observations is important, okay? And trusting those observations is important. And what's kind of interesting is we talk about all those superstitions. One of them is not to hurt a seagull. Do you remember what happened when the sheriff showed up? What he was doing right before the sheriff showed up. He had a hose. Kabuo had a hose. Does anybody remember that? It's kind of sad and gross. Well, he was washing off his boat, and there was a seagull that was creeping him out, if you remember. It was just sitting there, and it was bothering him. And there's this lone gull, it says on page 264, he's perched arrogantly 10 feet away on the gunwale. And what does he do with the hose? He sprays the seagull and hits it just right so it goes bam against another boat. Yeah. Okay. And does his luck start to go south at that moment? Yeah. I mean, he's not been having good luck already, but now things really, then the sheriff shows up. Simple yes or no question. And again, I think I have a kind of a cheating example, cheating advantage, because I've read the book a couple ahead. And I'll be honest with you, I only picked it up when I reread it because I knew what was coming. The question is, when the sheriff is searching the boat, okay, I don't know if you know this, but when somebody gets a search warrant, and let's say I'm supposed to go into your house and look for a gun, okay? Am I supposed to look for anything else? Okay, if it's not on the warrant, okay, I'm not supposed to be looking, unless it's like sitting right out there, okay? But if I'm there to look for a gun, I'm there to look for a gun, okay? What does the sheriff have a warrant to search for? The murder weapon. He's looking for a stick of some kind, okay? And the question is, does he stick to just that? And I don't know if anyone picked up on it. It's a quick, it happens so fast. Is there something else he notices? He looks at, and it seems maybe a little bit off the beaten track. But I don't know, let me stop talking. The batteries, awesome, yes, the batteries, okay? Because if you remember, there was an inconsistency with the batteries, and he has to see the engine and takes a look. So he kind of, sort of, I would say, fudged it a bit, shall we say, all right? So he needed to check that battery, and that will come up later. Okay, let's go on to chapter 19. This is an opinion question. I don't know, though. I have a feeling you're going to all come to agreement on this one. It's one question. You have the doctor who's a specialist in blood. He's in blood types, typing blood, hematologist, and then there are the fishermen, Dale Middleton, Vance Cope, and Leonard George. All gave their testimony about what they knew and how fishermen conducted business out on the sea. And one key thing they bring up is they're talking about you don't get on another fisherman's boat. That just doesn't happen. Okay? Unless you're corked off. You see that part where you're basically blocking someone else's net. That testimony. And then there's the testimony of the first sergeant from the Army. And the question is, do any of them provide a testimony that is damaging to Kabul? And if you think so, which witness do you think does damage to him? Again, it's the hematologist, the 3 fishermen, and sergeant from the Army. Remember, he doesn't say it's his blood. He says, and it's not common, but that's as far as he can go. And he can't, it's the same type, and it's also, he can't say can he say that it came from a specific part of the body? Say that the blood came from the head, the hand. Actually, there may have been find any. Do you remember something? His lawyer keeps saying, did you see, I mean, if you got whacked in the head really hard, enough to cause a dent, and the brain to come out a little bit, what would you expect to find on that stick, aside from blood? Hair, okay, maybe some skin, bone fragments, okay, something. And the lawyer presses that issue. And he says, well, I didn't really, no, that's not my job. He says, I know it's not your job, but did you see anything? Don't you think there should see these? So what he's doing is he's throwing doubt, because that's all you need to be acquitted. Acquitted means not found guilty, is a little reasonable doubt. So he's throwing that in there. So do you think that's damaging testimony? Or, okay. Then the fishermen just talk about how business is done. And then what does the Army sergeant talk about? How does he know Kabul? To remember, but it's right. The training, okay? He was going to train him how to use the stick. I believe it's called, is it kendo? The kendo stick, okay? So the sergeant says he's going to train Kabuo in the kendo stick. And I don't know if you remember, but Kabuo makes him mad a couple times. And this might be something you might not know from being in the military, but senior enlisted, a sergeant is what you call senior enlisted, like a chief in the Navy. In the Army, Marines, you have sergeants. And one thing they don't like to be called is sir. Okay? Who in the military do you call sir or man? What ranks? Or what part of the military? Right, and colonels, generals, officers, okay? So senior enlisted don't want to be called sir. The old joke is, no, he's not an officer. He's the highest. Your sergeants, your master sergeants, master chiefs, they are your senior enlisted. That's like is how you're going to go on the enlisted end. But they don't want to be called an officer. The old joke would be, I work for a living. Don't call me an officer, okay? And Kabul keeps calling him that. And kind of giving him a little bit of a hard time. And then what happens when they do a very brief training exercise. Very brief training exercise. Kabuo. I call him Kabuo. Yeah, he gets schooled very quickly. He's down on his back with a stick at his throat. Okay? And then he goes, here is your stick back. Okay? Now, the sergeant is no dummy. And he says that. He actually says, you remember now?
Yeah.
Yep. He says, yeah, he says, I wasn't stupid. He told the court that he learned all he could from Miyamoto, which is Kabuo's last name, including the importance of bowing, showing respect to your opponent. And he says that he may probably be one of the best out there, period. And he owes everything he knows about how to do kendo from Kabuo. So you think that's damaging testimony? Yeah, that he is definitely capable of delivering a death blow with that type of stick. So the last thing is, no, it would not surprise Sergeant Victor Maples to hear that Kabuo Miyamoto had killed a man with a fishing staff. He was highly capable of such a deed. Okay, this is probably the most, to me at least, out of the chapters we read, was the most interesting chapter. Let's look at a couple people. First of all, Carl's wife. And let's just blend all the questions together because I think they all relate. Carl and Carl's wife, their marriage, the nature of their marriage. What do we learn a lot about Carl's wife? What the kind of woman she was or is? I don't know how to put this, but like, why do you think, from what is in that chapter, why did they get married? Was it this deep shared love of literature? Yeah, it was a very sexual relationship. I don't know what, I don't know that I'm saying it was bad. It was just passionate in that way. It seems like, but that seems like all there is, unless I miss something. Yes, she was worried about what would happen when that faded, what would happen to their marriage. She, from all the descriptions, was apparently a beautiful woman, and even in her older age, even in her older age, is a very attractive woman because does anybody know? Did anybody pick up on the little hints that she's still very attractive from another character that we know she's still very attractive? The sheriff, excellent, because he can't help but, like, notice her. It's not that he's doing anything wrong. She's very attractive, so he just can't help but notice her. So she's very attractive, but the author makes clear that Carl and his wife had a very physically passionate relationship. And sometimes there's worry about, is that all there is? But they never get to find that out because he died when he did. But she also doesn't seem like a bad person. Is she unhappy where she's living, by the way? Was she unhappy in the house, where the house was, the view from the windows? Does anybody remember that? Because that's important. Because Carl had just decided to buy some land, and they would have to move. But where they live now gives her a nice view of the strawberry fields and the ocean. Is she really can't want to move? No, she doesn't. And when Kabul comes to ask for the land, how does she react to that? Is she against it? Is she, are you, I think she does, but at the same time, I don't think, I agree with you. And it's interesting, notice how when all that was going on, there was a point where they would have a conversation, and then it would reach this point and it would stop, because she's like, that's where when he gets like this, that we don't talk, we stop talking. But I never got a sense, and please tell me if you disagree, because I really want to know what you think here. I never got the sense that he was disrespectful of her, or she of him. It just, they had worked out this communication style of how they resolved things, and they both strike me as good people. And he's kind of he's mulling it over. He's thinking about selling it. And she's very polite when Kabul comes. She says, "Come in, have some coffee, please. I insist." But something, when they come back, he can't. Well, what is it? This is ironic that I am speaking like this right now, because what does he say is the problem since he's come back from the war, when he wanted to speak with Kabul about this? It's almost a physical thing. Something he can't do. It's on page 296. In the middle there. He doesn't know what to say, and even more so, not only does he not know what to say, he feels like he can't speak. And it says, later on he says, I can't talk. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to say to him. And then later on it says she recognized it as one of his quote unquote moments, thought it over and held her tongue. It had never been very clear to her if Carl and Kabul were friends or enemies. From what she sees there, it seems like they're friendly. But then on the top of page 297, he says, Carl had told her more than once, repeated it just the other day, how since the war he couldn't speak. Even his old friends were included in this. So that now Carl was a lonely man who understood land and work, boat and sea, his own hands, better than his mouth and heart. So something happened to him emotionally, where when emotion comes up, he can't verbalize it. You've all had those moments. I think I've been having a couple here just recently, where I'm trying to say something and it's all jammed in there. You know that when that happens? So he's frustrated because it keeps happening to him. And the thing is, part of him, I think, understands the injustice that happened to the Miyamoto family and wants to do the right thing. But the other thing is, and it says here, she understood that he was a man who needed plenty of space, a vast terrain in which to operate. He needed room, far more room than his boat could offer. And anyway, in order to put his war behind him. Okay? He would like to leave his boat for good and grow strawberries like his father. So he's trying to get away and go back to the land, But at the same time, he's torn. And then he says, comes down to the fact that Kabuo's a Jap, and I don't hate Japs, but I don't like them either. It's hard to explain. And then his wife calls him on it. Says, you don't hate him. You don't hate him. So that's all we know is the last exchange. Well, one of possibly the last exchanges between these two men. It's about the land. It doesn't seem to have ended badly. And do we think he's made any definite decision? Did he make any definite decision about selling the land? No. So it's still up in the air. We also know that his wife would probably rather stay where they are. He is a man who's upset and he's got issues from the war, but he also clearly has a conscience. And he wants to do the right thing. The three couples, Hatsu, Kabuo, Carl and Susan, and Carl's father and Carl's mother. Those three couples. Are they very similar, very different? Very different. Okay, Hatsu and Kabuo. Let's there's some kind of bond there, and there is communication. Carl and Susan. There's a bond, but as you pointed out, it's more physical, I think. Well, it is. It's not. I think if you're in the book, it's pretty clear. Hatsu and Kabuo seem to have, there's more discussion. And then Carl Sr. and Etta, if you remember Carl and Etta, okay? We already read that part where he said something to her about her and the marriage, right? Remember that part where he said we're wrong for each other? She's a angry racist. She wasn't. She is an angry racist. And he's not. They also, it seems like the men have a lot of decision-making authority in these relationships, but we are talking 1940s, okay? So I'm not terribly stunned by that, but at the same time, I don't feel like the women are second class. I feel like their husbands respect them. Although Carl Sr. might tolerate Etta. Let's just say that. Yeah, old-fashioned. Let's see. There's a lot more to, you could tell. Chapter 20 is pretty meaty. Maybe we can talk a little bit more next week about the last question, which is the war experiences with those three men. Who are the three men in this book who are dealing with war consequences? Carl, okay, Kabuo, and one more. Ishmael, okay. So the three of them are dealing with the repercussions of what they've gone through, what life was like before, who they are before and who they are now, and how it's affecting the relationships around them, okay? And it appears possibly that it may have affected it in a terrible way. So, just to close out for today, I wanted to do a quick survey. And if you already know the answer, just tell me, but what do people think? Do people think that Carl was murdered by Kabuo? No. Not sure. No. No. If you're not sure, that's an answer. Okay, so but you're not sure? You're not saying for sure he definitely didn't murder him.
I feel like there's people like in the G.A.P case who generally be like, yeah, he murdered him, but like the
Right.
people who matter.
Interesting. So what you're saying is people in the courtroom right now, it looks bad.
Yeah.
In the courtroom, it looks bad for Kabuo's case. I would agree with you, okay? And not only does it look bad, it kind of shades of, as by the way, I didn't get a chance to refer to it, but in this How to Read Literature Like a Professor book, there's no new stories. You know, stories come back in different versions. And this may remind you a little bit of the court scene in To Kill a Mockingbird, right? You all remember To Kill a Mockingbird, I think, to some degree? Yes? No? Okay. Well, there's an African American on trial for rape, and he's already in trouble before the trial starts. Why? Because he's black, okay? So he's in trouble. Kabuo's in a similar position. And not only is he in a similar position, his attitude isn't helping. Okay, he's not looking sorry. He's not looking sad or upset. He's looking stern and defiant. Okay? So we'll see where all that leads. So next week we've got 4 more chapters. And that wraps up for tonight. Got great books. And we will see you again next Monday night. Thank you very much.